Hello, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new around here, then my name is Katie. I'm a full-time sketchbook artist, and in today's video I'm going to be talking all about loosening up your artwork. It is something I get asked quite a lot about because I do try and lean into the looser style and keep things quite naive. I didn't always create this way. I used to be very realistic with my style, and so it's definitely something that I've developed, and today I'm going to be sharing my tips with you. So I hope you enjoy the video, and let's get on with it. So I'm just getting all of the things ready. I'm using my Pith sketchbook and referencing the complete book of British birds. I'll leave an affiliate link to both of these down below, as well as listing all of my supplies. But if you want to know specific shades, then please do let me know a timestamp, pop it in the comments and I'll let you know. I'm using quite a few different things in this video, so here's a little example. I've got some brush pens, some acrylic markers and some acrylic ink. I also come in with some pencils, and you'll see later I use some Neocolors. So this is my first tip, and that is to use timers. So I absolutely love using timers in my work. I find it really does help loosen me up. For these ducks I did this left page with 1 and 2 minute timers, so very quick. It is quite frantic and it really helps me to not worry as much. I'm really not focused on the details, I'm just sort of focused on the main shape, and it really helps loosen me up because I'm not trying to get every single thing that I can see down. I'm trying to really simplify the shapes and work out what I need to put on the paper to communicate this to the viewer and to me when I look back at it without having all of the details in. So despite the very quick 1 to 2 minute timers, I think it's still really obvious what kind of ducks these are and that they are ducks in the first place. So you can see that my line work is very rough and very messy, and that's totally fine by me. I really love that loose look. You can see with my scribbles, and there we are, the timer is done. But the scribbles really help keep that looseness, and I love the texture that it adds. So I accidentally didn't film that top one on the right, but I'll talk to you a little bit more about that method later on. But here I am again going in with a very fast duck. I'm using another 2 minute timer here. And I'm kind of just grabbing the materials I want based on colour. These aren't super accurate, I'm just using what I have on the desk. But this is a similar technique that I use for that top bird, and that is applying things with your fingers. So again, that really loosens me up because I kind of lose control there. I'm just trying to smush it out with my fingers. That was acrylic ink, and just by smushing it out, it creates a really nice texture, and it does really help me to be loose if I use my fingers to create. And I find it helps even more on timers because it's a lot quicker than grabbing my brush. You'll see it didn't quite dry, so I am just going on top where I can with my coloured pencils. Again, layering things on top using my brush markers and grabbing things. And I am working really fast because that timer is going and I'm aware it's going to run out soon. So it is a little bit frantic. It does take a while to get used to timers, but you don't have to have them super quick all the time. I just find it really helps me to not overwork things, to really work out what it is that I want to communicate and prioritize that before I then add on details if I've got time at the end. So here I've got the main shape of the duck, and I'm just adding in a few more details to the patterns on the bird, and then my timer is up. So the next one, again, I'm using a 2 minute timer. I'm actually putting down an outline for this one, so I'm just using my Luminance pencil. For the other ones, you'll see I did sort of colour and shape first, but I wanted to try an outline for this one. And my next tip for keeping your artwork loose is to actually use materials that are bigger. So you can see there I put down some basic colours with some really thick markers. They were acrylic markers. I used a Montana one, which I mixed up myself, and a Posca. And using pens or something that's bigger, you can also use really big brushes. It really helps to loosen up those initial marks, and then I'm coming in here with a darker pencil to really define those shapes. It helps keep things loose because rather than sort of being in the lines and colouring in that sketch line that I put first, I can be a lot looser and I can come in and define the shape just to make it look a bit more like a duck later on with darker lines. But I really like that effect, so I definitely think using things that are thicker than you would probably use normally definitely helps to keep a looser effect. This one is quite messy. This one was quite a detailed duck, but overall you can see the looseness. You can still kind of see what duck it is and the marks that it has on its body. So again, for this next duck, I have gone with a shorter 1 minute timer. So the thing with using all these different materials and using brush pens, I like using brush pens and drier mediums because it does dry fast. It is a little bit more of a challenge when you are using wetter mediums because, as you saw with the acrylic ink, things won't go on top. But it does help keep me loose because I'm not colouring things in really neatly. You'll see that there are gaps where the paper shows through. I think that adds a lot of looseness, so I'm not trying to be super precise by filling in the entire shape with a really block colour. I quite like it when the paper shows through, and again it does add that looseness. I really like this sweet one. I used the mix of tones of greys and I'm grabbing a whole load of mediums, so I don't just stick with one colour. That's another way to stay loose, is to grab a colour, do a line, grab another colour, do another area, and then come back to that first colour, rather than sticking with one medium and then moving on to the next. I find the result is a lot looser and a lot more fun if you are just grabbing things as you go, and that really creates a lot of energy in your work. I think that's why I love working loose in general, because I love the energy that it creates for my final pieces. This little duck here on the bottom left was very simple because he was a white duck, but one of the ways I added interest to this was actually using a lilac for the colours. So changing the colours also creates a looser effect. It feels less realistic and it's just a bit more fun. So again, applying that with my acrylic marker, which was a bit chunkier than I would usually go for, it just created this extra texture, and I really love the simplicity of his shape here. So I'm done with the very fast timers here on the left hand page. I'm just adding in the 1 and 2 minutes that I created these ducks in, and then I'll move on to the next techniques I want to show you for staying loose. Okay, so I've just got to clear off my desk. As you'll see, and because I am working on really fast timers, I do make a mess. As you grab and go, you will throw things down, and because of that pressure of being on a timer, it definitely makes your desk a lot messier. But the next thing that I really want to talk about with staying loose is to hold your materials in different ways. So you can see here I'm grabbing my markers, I'm holding them from the back of the barrel, so really far away, which means that I'm a lot looser with my mark making. It really means I have a lot less control, so you can hold them from the side, and again coming in with my finger here, which creates a really nice effect of just smudging it out. And I think the lack of control here is what really creates that looseness. You can neaten things up with your pencil lines after, so if you're trying to loosen up, don't worry, don't panic that it might look a bit of a hot mess at first, because you can come in later and add on your lines. So here I'm kind of using the side of the pencil. I've also not sharpened it, which helps, again, not have that control of being really tight with my lines. Using the pencils from the back, I can create scribbly marks, and I think drawing loose is really about letting go a little bit and allowing marks to go in different places and working it around that and making your artwork work despite those maybe lesser perfect lines. So holding things from the side, that's a really nice way to create texture. I often use my pens with the nib kind of completely horizontal, just so that I can get that effect. And then I do also use the pencils as they are, just to do the line work around and like to add in details of the beak. But the different applications, so with your fingers, with using them on their side, of not having that control, is a big factor for drawing loose for me. So another one is to embrace the scribble. You can see here I'm just adding on some different greens, and again I'm not keeping it super clean, so I'm not creating a block colour here. I really do want to have those scribble marks, and again I think that creates the looseness because it shows that, you know, you don't need it. You don't need every single detail for you to understand what you're drawing. So even if you are drawing loose and you might go super abstract with this, I think that you can really play with the balance. So if you are trying some of these techniques, you can do a lot of it or a little of it. You could do a whole piece just by holding the paintbrush at the very end of the handle, and that will create a really loose piece. So I think it can be a really fun way to experiment. Okay, so the next one I am using some more near colours. So using various mediums, I have talked a little bit about this already, but switching things up, not just sticking to one medium and staying with that. For example, I find if I just use gouache, I can be a little bit more tight, whereas when I add in new mediums and mix things up, it really helps me to be loose because I'm kind of going against the rules. I might mix something in that's not supposed to be mixed with, or I might add some water and use my fingers. And this is kind of against what we're usually taught, which is to be a little bit more precise, maybe to be a bit more realistic. But just playing and really having fun experimenting with our mediums is where my looseness comes in, and also my fun. So with using Neocolors, I find that the thicker mediums for line work really helps me to be loose too. So earlier I obviously used thicker acrylic markers with really chunky nibs to put down the shape first, but here I'm using Neocolors and I haven't sharpened them because I like the thickness I can get, and again I'm losing a little bit of that control. These are Neocolor 2, so I can again wet my finger and come in and smush it about. But by not sharpening them, it again gives me a little bit more of a thicker line, and for me that creates a lot of looseness in my work. So for this duck, I think I did a longer timer. It might have been 7 minutes or so, and you don't have to do really short timers for your drawings, but I found the best way for me to loosen up was to start with maybe 10 minutes, and then slowly I've gotten quicker and quicker. So now I can create quite quickly on 1 and 2 minute timers, but if it feels a little bit too much at first, then I would say start with 10 and then slowly go down to shorter timers. You will be surprised by how much you can get down and how much you sort of take in. So you'll learn what you need to include on the page, and then you might notice when you are not working to a timer, you're able to be looser without having that time restraint. For this one, I actually didn't need the full 7 minutes. You can see I still had 1 minute and 30 left. So that's just because I felt like it was done. I didn't need to add on any more details and I didn't want to overwork it. So for me, I could just call it there. But you will find that the more you practice, the easier it is to work fast and stay loose. So this last one, I am again using a mix of all the techniques I've already talked about. So the thicker markers, and the other thing I want to mention is not sketching first. I really like finding the shape after. You'll see in all of my artwork I very rarely sketch first unless it's a subject I'm not sure on. So you can really get a little bit looser because you can define the shapes after with your line work, but I find not having the lines to work with really means that I don't worry as much, and like I've spoken about a lot in this video, I find is a lot more freeing. The other thing is, it doesn't mean no details, so if you are sketching loose, it doesn't mean you can't be precise with your lines. There are areas where I've been really careful with my lines and I've put in like the details of the feathers, or I've added in the little eyeball. So being loose doesn't necessarily mean no details at all. I think it's just about having fun and enjoying it and working out what you do and do not need. The last thing I want to mention is battling perfectionism. So most of the time I think it's about your mindset. What is it that makes your drawings tight? If you have a look at something and feel like it's not as loose, why do you think that is? Have a little evaluation about your work and maybe see if you want to be a bit more squibbly, or maybe you think it needs to be perfect and super neat, and that might be because of the way that you've been taught to create art. So I think a lot of it is about mindset, and I really recommend just creating more. Drawing more, doing my daily art challenge really helped me to loosen up. As you can see, I focus on ducks here, and just creating multiple versions of that duck meant each one was looser and looser. So I would say enjoy the process, have fun. The more you create, and creating on timers and playing with your mediums, the looser you'll be able to be. I really hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much to my patrons for their support in allowing me to create YouTube videos like this, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you next Sunday in my new YouTube video. See you later.